Hey everybody, Professor Reed here. Hope you're doing well. Seems like we're on the eve of July 4th, so hopefully everybody's preparing for that, event. So what I want to do is just upload some videos now. The thing is, take a look at the syllabus. This is the 202A class, and I've taught, at Penn State for, not, I've been at Penn State for probably 10 years now, taught a variety of classes. Uh, I'll enjoy it. And I know this is for a summer course. I'm based out of Abington. So I've done this sort of like idea of conspiracy theories along with discourse community, sort of tying it hand in hand together. Now, what you'll see is that there's a proposal, which we'll talk about in a minute, and look at the due dates because I'm going to try to record this for in the future as well. So look at the due dates on Canvas for it. What you want to do is download it and also um, fill it in and then upload it. I'll create a Dropbox for it. Okay. So now what like well, not I keep saying that, but the point of this is that you're gonna find a specific discourse community, and uh, the phrase was coined by a linguist by the name of John Swales. We'll actually see a picture of him in a second. And it's basically a group that has a common set of goals, purposes, and communication to achieve these goals. Now, what is exciting about the course over the summer is that we're in the social sciences. So for the majors in the social sciences, uh, for example, psychology, not to limit anything if I don't mention one, criminal justice, um, also political science. This is a perfect sort of fit. Now, here's the thing: if you sort of struggle with trying to find a group, email me or a community. But also keep in mind that, as you'll see in the proposal that's up online, you have to interview a few folks for it. Now, you're going to list 4 people to interview, but the goal of this is that you try to find somebody that has maybe been in the group, or somebody that is has affiliations for it, or maybe like somebody that has like an understanding of it. And we'll talk about that. That is probably one of the bigger challenges of the essay, especially with the course being shorter over the summer, to try to find. So what you want to do is download the proposal, and then that's the main project that we work on throughout the semester. We basically create this rather long uh, paper on this specific discourse community. We'll look at the different types of source material, which I sent out a video for on that, and we will also try to add an interview, which counts as a primary source, and then a secondary source. Okay, so now in terms of like conspiracy theory, this is always sort of like a debate in terms of like a paper. um and what I'll do is I'll talk about some previous classes, some of the suggestions that they did, and I'll try to go back and actually find a few and upload them tonight. So you want to try to find a discourse community, one that you can get some interviews with, and then basically you're going to look at these 6 characteristics per John Swales that a discourse community has in common. Okay, so characteristics. Now, like sort of anything in a academic type of setting, we sort of have to sift through some of the language that they use. And you know what? I don't really remember exactly off the top of my head how old the article is. I want to say it's from the 80s and the 90s. So obviously this is like evolved a little bit. Okay, so we're going to take this idea of discourse community, and we're going to try to find a group that fits this, and we're going to write a research paper on it, and we're going to look at specifically databases in the social sciences. We're going to try to add in source material, and we're going to do some annotation as well, which I'm sure you all have done before. Now, what's going to be a little bit different is we're going to look at epideitic, deliberative, and forensic source material. We're going to try to blend those together. Okay. And that's the picture of him I talked about. I want to say he's British. Okay, now here is, maybe you could pause this and look at it. Okay, but here's the 6 characteristics. And like we said in the previous slide, a lot of times in the sort of academic world, they're going to use some terminology that maybe we need to define a little bit more. So Swales uses this idea of Lexis, and that's going to be a specific type of language that the group uses. Okay, so feedbacks from communication is another one. We're looking at sort of the way like a group interacts with itself and with the outside world, and we're trying to look at what are its goals, inner outer group communication. The term genre that is used a lot of times means like sort of vehicles for communication. Now, this can be where you get creative with it, and how I get real excited about the essay because I've taught it before. But there's this like evolution with the way groups communicate. Now, like from a criminal justice or a psychology major, political science standpoint, what makes this interesting is, like this can be all sorts of groups that have like a conspiracy lean to them, but aren't necessarily like considered like a conspiratorial group. So, for example, a lot of times people will consider like a conspiracy group like Flat Earth Society. Like that's a group that would fit this idea of discourse community, and you could do that as a group. There's a multitude of different groups you could do, but you can also think about like like a little bit more flexible with the usage of conspiracy theory. So, for example, I had really good papers on um, cult type groups, which is great for a psychology type of paper. Now, we could debate if they have like quote unquote conspiracy theories. Um, like I'm trying to think of some of these. There's groups that have been sort of like end time related groups that you wouldn't think of as like traditionally conspiracy theory oriented, but they have elements of it. So if you want to shoot an email to me before you work on the proposal, you can do that. But basically, what you want to do is look at these 6 areas. And for the proposal, we're not trying to make it like intensely APA, intensely format oriented. We're trying to keep it like big picture overview because this is, like I said, this is something that I did for my course over the summer. 7 week. I mean, it's a quick course. It's almost scary how quick it is, but like the goal is that you can sort of understand conceptually the essay, and you can also get the proposal in so you don't waste time with the research. Now, once again, keep in mind that um, you're gonna have to interview 2 people, so be sort of aware of that. Now, another idea is this idea of discourse community. We're gonna stress this sort of conspiratorial group. I find that to be a really good fit for social sciences. Not as good of a fit for like humanities per se, but the idea is that we're coming into this and we're going to try to understand this group through like the lens of source material, and we're also going to look at the way like certain groups have evolved over time. So and specifically like morphed or maybe communicate via the internet. Okay, so as an example of this, like there is a group called the incels, like there's some music group. No, they're like a group. Now their ideology uh has morphed and changed over time. Sort of came out of this men's rights movement, and I have had students do a really good job on papers from on them from sort of a criminal justice standpoint, or from like a psychology standpoint, or sociology standpoint. Okay, so now sort of keep that in mind. The goal of the class is that we're trying to take these practices of the social sciences, and we're trying to hone them and make the paper a little bit more about that. That being said, stylistically, it's going to be APA formatting, which I'm very familiar with. I read PhDs for a school, and I read them for all different types of PhD degrees, but mostly in the sciences. So the APA formatting has a very specific feel to it. So we'll try to keep that in mind. And what we're going to do is we're going to take each one of these little areas, these little buckets, and we're going to try to develop those in the essay. So you can see that, like, these, I don't know, there's no real, like, hard rule about it, but they have pretty good points for development. Okay. So, A, you want to find a discourse community leaning towards conspiracy type of groups. Although, like, I did have one a couple semesters ago, somebody did vegans, and they were like, I don't think vegans are. We had this debate in class if vegans were conspiratorial, which sounds insane, right? But, um, you could get to a point where I'm trying to think, like in the class, like we were sort of having this satirical discussion about it, but like veganism could be maybe related to um some sort of ideology that sees like it's really like maybe an anti-capitalist type of thing, which you could argue, right, could have like layers of quote unquote conspiracy. So like there is a flexibility with it. And I will also say this, like, I'm a writer, I have a master's in writing. um I don't claim to be an expert in anything, but like, students have uber impressed me with some of the things that they've thought of and applied to this. So creativity is a thing. Now, if you want to take it like a political group, um, that's something you could do. Um, a site, a group that has. I've had a lot of papers on Scientology, which I'm a big fan of science. Like, I enjoy those papers, and there's been some super layers of creativity with it. So like, like, no, we have a short summer, summer, and summer two is always like super stressful because like everybody's headed towards the fall. So, there's a flexibility with it, but you're basically taking this idea of what are their common goals, mechanisms for intercommunication, and like sort of how the group interacts with the outer world. Feedback through participation. Now that's a good one because like if they use YouTube channels and if they use some sort of memes is a great one to look at. And that idea of genre is sort of this idea of like basically the types of communication. Like, what do they use as vehicles for communication? Vocabulary is great because it has a lot of these groups have their own categories of vocabulary they use. And as I mentioned, a few people, criminal justice, have done the incel ideology, which is a hateful, dreadful ideology, but they did a really good job of looking at it through the eyes of like the different types of hashtags and the way they use them, which is super super fascinating because like the internet is going to try to, well, not the internet, but a lot of your bigger tech companies are under a fair amount of pressure to control their hateful ideology, and then members of different statuses. Now, here's the thing: as you do this, if you have one that's really heavy, say on vocabulary, and a little less heavy on status, that's cool. What you want to do is try to get a group, look at these 6 parameters, and know that this is going to develop into the essay. And then also know that out of this setup, you're going to create some interview questions. And know that the interview questions are hopefully going to be able to integrate into the paper pretty easily. Okay, and here is the proposal. So what you want to do, and the only thing that's not on the proposal is like you have to list who you're going to interview. So remember to put that on there. And does the group share a common vocabulary? If so, or language? What makes it different from other people express itself? Now these are sort of all intertwined. It's what I really like about the essay, because like sometimes you'll see like a group will have a very specific terminology that they use that they end up sort of like ostracizing or like creating a hierarchy, which is related to the bottom. Okay, and I also keep in mind like one group's conspiracy theory group is another person's truth, and the proverbial question is like, what conspiracy group do you believe in? It's not really the point of the paper. The point of the paper is going to be more like neutral about it. Now, that being said, a group like we mentioned, the incel group, is like very hard to like not be like judgmental of. In fact, we probably should be, like, but like we're gonna try our best to sort of be like, this is more an informative paper, okay, more of like like a data driven, source driven type of paper. Okay. Does the group share common behaviors and practice? What are they, and do the group? What do they? Sorry, what are they, and why does the group do these things? Do these practices reveal or reflect deeper attitudes or beliefs? Now, like I'm starting to think back to some of the papers I've had before. I've had multiple papers on like Satanism. God, this sounds like an insane lecture. We're talking about Satanism, but they basically every paper has had a theme that like Satanism is sort of like misrepresented in the public eye, if that makes sense, and that maybe Satanists are trying to take sort of like the most evil character in like Western history. I mean, we're not saying we're saying like a quote like a quote unquote like fictional character. Does that make sense? There's obviously been historical characters that have been evil and rotten, but we're talking about sort of like going back sort of historically as a character where we're taking that and like maybe they don't believe in Satanism per se. They just are trying to elicit almost like a reaction. So like that's another group that people have looked at. Now that is a religious group sort of fall into this. Political groups fall into this. Like the amount of discourse communities you can look at. I wouldn't focus so much on the conspiracy side, but there's like you want a little bit of that in there. Okay, does the group share common goals, assumptions? Where are they? Where do they come from? How, when, and where do members of the group usually communicate with each other? And do these forms of communication suggest anything about the way the group is structured or organized? That's great because the groups could communicate, um, via uh, Twitch or on a Reddit board or on 4chan or through memes. There's all sorts of ways that you can sort of do that. Does the group have a threshold for membership? Is there anything taboo? And can somebody get expelled? Okay, so that's pretty interesting as well. We had mentioned veganism as a group that we wouldn't want to necessarily label conspiratorial, but it is a group that I guess you could get like expelled from, or you could sort of become an ally. Okay, now, you could take a group that's sort of like anti-LGBT, or you could take like this is where we're gonna sort of take away the conspiratorial type of idea. You could take a group that like is very specific in the LGBT world, where they have a specific agenda or ideology. Um, I've had students look at, religious groups or political groups. A fair amount of papers on like anti-vaxxers. There's like uh, groups on the right and the left that have like some pretty extreme ideologies you could look at. Once again, we're not really here to like judge politically because it's not an argumentative essay. We're here to sort of look at this from a neutral sort of standpoint. And then finally, how are the rules of the group established? How are they enforced? How might a new member of the community begin to gain power or authority within the group? These are all questions that you want to see. You want to download this document. I'll put up some examples of it, and then fill it in for your group. Don't really worry about having too many source materials. This isn't like some hyper structured proposal because we got a short amount of time. And then don't forget to also add the interviews you're going to have on there. And then we'll talk about that as we move forward. Okay. So, yeah. I'm going to try to get more videos up. Uh, had just a little slight delay getting a few of these up. I wish I could have got this up earlier, but sort of baked that into it. Yeah, email me if you need anything. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.